would have thought it? PSG are better off without Kylian Mbappe. Well, I say better off. The team seems to be more of a cohesive unit. But is that just down to the departure of the Frenchman? What effect has Luis Enrique had on the team? And when did Ousmane Dembele get so damn good? Well, we're about to find out, as I'm Matt from FourFourTwo, and this is how PSG have redefined themselves after Kylian Mbappe. To help me along with this one, I've spoken to French journalist, podcaster and PSG fan Julien Laurens, who certainly saw that replacing Mbappe was the impossible task and therefore required the club's transfer strategy to approach things from a different angle.
The idea was to replace him with Kvaratskhelia, to go to Napoli and get Kvicha last summer. And that was really the only big name signing, big marquee signing they wanted to do. 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗏 cost a bit of money, but he was not really a name that everybody was kind of familiar with, certainly not at the level of Kvaratskhelia. The idea was really to get a pure winger to replace Mbappe, who was your number 9 last season, even if he prefers to play on the left, but who was a guy who scored 44 goals for you. And yet, if you get Kvaratskhelia, for example, you know he's not going to get you 44 goals. But the idea was very much, you can't really replace Mbappe himself. There's nobody that PSG could have signed with the same output in the team, with the same stardust and that kind of thing. That was not possible, or the ones that you could have signed were not available anyway.
So they had a plan for Kvaratskhelia, but bringing him in required patience. It's, if anything, a testament to PSG in the fact that they really wanted Kvicha's specific profile and his signing was a well thought out plan, not a knee-jerk reaction to anything they'd seen in the first half of the campaign when they eventually got him in January. All this basically shows that PSG were and are building and thinking in long-term strategies.
Even the others that came, like a 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗏 Doue, for example, again, good promising kid in France, but not the same status that Kvaratskhelia as a Serie A champion, Champions League quarter-finalist already had, really, at the time. They just could not make it happen. And instead of going and spending that money somewhere else, they thought, let's keep what we have. We've got 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, we've got Dembele, we've got Doue. And then if we can do Kvaratskhelia maybe in January or next summer, then we will do it. But they could not find an agreement with Napoli over the transfer fee. Napoli wanted a lot of money, way over 100 million euros. Kvaratskhelia wanted to come already last summer. They just felt it was just not right for them. So again, a bit like what Liverpool did with Van Dijk at the time. They rather waiting to get the right guy, the guy that they wanted from day one, instead of spending the money on somebody else. That was the plan B.
As Julien mentioned, that transfer will come at a later date, and it all formed part of this big Mbappe replacement plan. But in the meantime, manager Luis Enrique already had bundles of talent to work with, and like you'd expect from all good managers, he had a plan for the attacking threat in this now Mbappe-less PSG side. A plan that would see the goals shared out amongst the PSG front line.
From the beginning, he said, we will be a better team now without Kylian. I would have rather kept him, but now that he's gone, we will be better. And we will share the goals with our attackers. One guy can score 40 goals, no problem. But if 4 guys can score 15 each, then at the end of the season, you've got more goals than the guy that left with 40. Obviously, I know that Mbappe scored 40 and you could have Gonzalo Ramos with 15 and Dembele with 15. So it's not really right and fair. But I like the fact that that's how they thought. Instead of trying to get a number 9 with 40 goals, because they didn't really fancy someone like 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗏, for example, or Gyökeres, or those kind of guys, Sesko, Isak even. They just thought, okay, what can we do here? We will play 4-3-3, so we need a lot from the 2 wide players in assists and in goals. We need a good number 9 that will score goals, but a number 9 that will fit that 4-3-3 formation. And Luis Enrique didn't want just a guy who would be in the box and stand there. His idea was at some point to move Dembele there and have 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 and Kvaratskhelia, or Doue and 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, Doue and Kvaratskhelia there, and leave that kind of central area to Dembele, because he's so unpredictable. I think to defend against him is much more difficult than to defend against a more traditional number 9 too.
So now here we are, and Luis Enrique is looking like an absolute genius because everything has gone exactly to plan. Whilst last season saw Mbappe score 44 goals, with the second highest being Gonzalo Ramos with 14, this season the goals have been shared around. Ousmane Dembele has over 30 in all competitions, with 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, Ramos and Doue all in the teens for goal scoring. Hell, even Hakimi and Nuno Mendes have 7 and 6 respectively. But before we go giving Enrique all the credit, although he does deserve a lot, this Dembele through the middle idea isn't exactly something new. In fact, it's something that French boss Didier Deschamps has seen in the former Barcelona man for quite some time.
I remember him saying like, I would really fancy trying him number 9, but you can't really do it at international level because you don't have the time to work on it. You don't have enough games either. If you play him there and it's a disaster for 2 games, he doesn't do anything, you lose 2 games, and so it's difficult. But Deschamps had that in his mind already. And I think the key for me of this incredible 2025 so far for PSG is the move of like moving Dembele from wide to central. And I think the key in Dembele's current form, which is a Ballon d'Or form, best player in the league, one of the best players in Europe right now, is moving him there and him realizing that this was maybe the right position for him, to the point that he joked about it a bit on Sunday night when he received the Ligue 1 Player of the Season award. Deschamps was there and he said like, he's still playing me wide with France, and everybody laughed, and Deschamps said, oh, you're taking the mick, I'm going to play you on the left instead of the right now, but not central. But I think Deschamps in the last game against Croatia played him centrally, and I think this is the future. And I think Dembele realized that being closer to goal, with maybe less running to do, less creativity in his game, although he can still do it because he gave, again, I think 13 assists this season, is better for his game. And that maybe the lack of efficiency that he used to have before, coming from wide positions, was maybe just, it was not so much about him and his finishing. It was more, if you put him in better position, then he could be clinical too. And it's difficult wide. Really only Salah can do it, and now a bit of Lamine Yamal and those kind of guy. But it's not that common to have a winger that can score 35, 40 goals a season, really. And I think now that he's closer to the goal, that he's in that zone, that area, that he's a bit more calm, he's a bit more experienced, more mature, that has helped him massively. But the two go together. To explain PSG's great form is Dembele going into that number 9 position, and to explain Dembele's great form is him moving into that number 9 position.
But aside from the ridiculous form of Ousmane Dembele, something I'm sure by now you'll be aware of unless you live under the proverbial footballing rock, this plan isn't just as simple as suggesting that players share the goals. It's more due to the fact that each player brings something different to the table in a variety of positions. I'll be honest, whilst doing my research for this video, I thought, why do they need to sign Kvaratskhelia when Barcola's having such a good season? Well, as the old saying goes, there's many ways to skin a cat, and Barcola's way was just doing things very, very quickly.
He's got that speed, electric speed, that Kvaratskhelia, who's quick, doesn't really have. But Kvaratskhelia is even quicker with the ball at his feet, slaloming and doing that skills and the runs with the ball that maybe Bradley still needs to improve on a bit more, because I think Barcola for a long time, a bit like what Dembele used to do, was very much a winger that has so much pace that he was give me the ball and then I push the ball, I run behind and I'm too fast for everybody, really. Whereas for Kvaratskhelia, it's more give me the ball and I go one-on-one and then you can't stop me, because you don't know I can go on the outside, I can go on the inside, right foot, left foot. He's so unpredictable, as we saw in the goal against Aston Villa, for example, where 𝗬𝗫𝗧𝗏 is still looking at where Kvaratskhelia is, really. He did him so dirty.
And just like Barcola's ability, Kvaratskhelia brought something different to the table that made him stand out from his predecessor Mbappe. Something that almost typifies this new and improved PSG side: work rate.
All the data that PSG had last summer when they wanted to sign him in the first place, the goals, the skills, what technical ability, that was great, no problem. But they were very impressed with all his numbers defensively and tracking back, following his fullback, helping his fullback, all of that kind of stuff. That really, for a team like Luis Enrique that presses and counter presses so well, and is so important to the team and to the method and the system, you need wingers who will do that kind of work. And Kylian would never defend like Kvaratskhelia. This is not what he does. He didn't defend when he was 10 years old. He's not going to defend now that he's 26, So, but that's also what they wanted, and that's what they saw in Kvaratskhelia. A guy who's great on the ball. You can give the ball to him under pressure. He's so press resistant. He's so good in one-on-ones, in tight spaces, but also he can run at you, and also he will defend for his life, and that's what they wanted, and that's what they got.
I know it's super cliche, but this new PSG team and their new transfer strategy, not just the names in this video by the way, but also Lee Kang-in, for example, Vitinha, William Pacho, Lucas Beraldo, 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗏, have helped to make the club a little bit more relatable to the fans. Sure, not every transfer worked out. Kolo Muani is definitely one of them. But with the signings of 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 and Doue, it seems that PSG are going in a slightly different direction. And Doue especially is the absolute epitome of this for me. They signed a young player now with a load of potential to basically help him grow, instead of paying a ridiculous amount of money like they had to do with Neymar once Doue becomes world class. Of course, there's the risk that he won't be, but having seen the start to his life at PSG, it looks like he's going to go far. I am in no way, on top of all of this, ignoring the fact they paid 50 million for a teenager, but I guess that's the going rate for someone with so much potential these days.
Doue is the one that really, I think, defies all. I knew how good he was technically, of course, because I'd seen him. I remember him making his debut at 16 for Rennes. I remember watching that game and thinking, okay, there's something there. Clearly, you could see it. 2 weeks later, he scores his first goal in Ligue 1 at 16. You think, okay, there are not that many players who can do that. And then it was inconsistent. But again, at that age, it's normal. There's some moments where he would be on the ball and you think like, wow, breathtaking. And other times where he would lose the ball because he would try to do things too difficult and you're like, just simplify your game. And even when he arrived at the club, I was a little bit skeptical. 50 million euros is a lot of money for a 19-year-old. I remember him starting at Arsenal at the Emirates in October in the league phase of the Champions League, out of his depth on the right-hand side. Dembele had been dropped for that game. Doue started as a right winger. I mean, PSG were outplayed by Arsenal, especially in the first half, but he was not ready for the level. But maybe the turning point is the end of December and when he scored that goal against Salzburg, and then he was just like that was the boost of confidence he needed. And after that, I mean, on the ball, really, I know we're comparing to Neymar and it's a little bit too much maybe right now, but technically I've rarely seen somebody as good as him, really, and I've seen thousands of players.
I know PSG have jumped around from project to project, whether that's a new manager or new signings, but you feel, having tinkered for a few years, they've now finally settled on a footballing identity and success is sure to follow. And if it is, then they might have to beat what I think will be a resurgent Arsenal side in the years to come. And to find out why that is, you can click right here to view that Arsenal video. But in the meantime, let me know in the comment section down below if you think PSG are going to be an absolute powerhouse in the years to come. Don't forget to subscribe whilst you're there, and I'll see you in the next video.